What if the deadliest weapon used during America's war on alcohol wasn't in the hands of gangsters? What if it came from the government itself? During Prohibition, thousands of Americans died after drinking poisoned alcohol. Many believed they had fallen victim to ruthless bootleggers. But in 1926, the federal government made a decision that historians still debate today. Officials ordered industrial alcohol to be denatured with increasingly toxic chemicals, including large quantities of methanol, knowing that illegal distillers were stealing and attempting to purify it for human consumption. Doctors warned that people would keep drinking it. Newspapers reported mounting casualties. Hospitals filled with victims suffering blindness, paralysis, organ failure, and agonizing deaths. Yet the policy continued. By the end of Prohibition, historians estimate that roughly 10,000 Americans had died from poisoned alcohol. The government believed fear would succeed where law had failed. Instead, it exposed one terrifying truth. America's war on alcohol had become a war in which ordinary citizens were caught in the crossfire. And astonishingly, that wasn't even the country's biggest mistake. Because while poisoned alcohol was killing thousands, another force was becoming richer than ever before. Not foreign enemies, not corrupt politicians, organized crime. The law designed to destroy alcohol had accidentally created one of the most profitable black markets in American history. Within only a few years, hidden bars appeared beneath restaurants. Smugglers crossed borders every night. Police officers accepted envelopes filled with cash. Machine guns became business tools. And criminals earned fortunes selling something that had been perfectly legal only days before. But none of this happened overnight. For decades, Americans had argued about alcohol. Many families viewed excessive drinking as a source of poverty, violence, workplace accidents, and broken homes. Organizations like the Women's Christian Temperance Union and the Anti-Saloon League transformed those concerns into one of the most successful political movements in American history. Then World War I changed everything. Large breweries owned by German-American families suddenly became targets of public suspicion. Supporters argued that grain belonged to soldiers instead of breweries. Patriotism merged with Prohibition. What had been a moral campaign rapidly became a national wartime cause. Congress acted with remarkable speed. The 18th Amendment was approved by Congress in December 1917 and ratified by the required number of states in January 1919. Later that year, the Volstead Act established how the new constitutional ban would be enforced. America had outlawed the manufacture, sale, and transportation of intoxicating liquor. At 1 minute past midnight, January 17, 1920, the experiment officially began. Church bells rang. Supporters celebrated in the streets. Many believed crime would collapse, families would heal, and America would become cleaner, healthier, and more prosperous. At first, it seemed they were right. Alcohol consumption fell dramatically during the early years. Public drunkenness declined in many communities. Some hospitals reported fewer alcohol-related admissions. Temperance leaders celebrated what they believed was a historic victory. But demand had never disappeared. Millions of Americans still wanted a drink after work. Still wanted champagne for celebrations. Still wanted whiskey on cold winter nights. The law had changed. Human nature had not. Almost immediately, an invisible economy began to emerge. It spread through forests, across frozen lakes, along isolated coastlines, inside hidden basements, and beneath the busiest cities in America. Every restriction created a new opportunity. Ordinary truck drivers became smugglers. Mechanics became engineers of escape. Bartenders became members of secret criminal networks. Entire neighborhoods learned to communicate through passwords and whispered directions. The country wasn't becoming dry. It was simply going underground. Federal agents soon discovered an impossible reality. America's borders stretched for thousands of miles. Its coastline was even longer. Every road, every river, every hidden trail could become another smuggling route. The government had declared war against a product that was astonishingly easy to transport. Meanwhile, the profits became irresistible. One truckload of illegal whiskey could generate fortunes. One successful shipment could pay more than months of honest work. The risk was enormous, but so was the reward. The greatest criminals of the century quickly recognized the opportunity. Names like Johnny Torrio, Lucky Luciano, Dutch Schultz, and one young gangster from Brooklyn, Alphonse Capone. America's alcohol ban would make them legends. Yet some of the boldest outlaws weren't hiding inside Chicago. They were racing through the Appalachian Mountains after midnight, driving machines built for one purpose alone: to outrun the law. And without realizing it, they were about to invent an entirely new American sport. Far from the bright lights of Chicago and New York, another war was unfolding deep in the Appalachian Mountains. There, moonshiners had been making illegal whiskey long before Prohibition. The new federal ban didn't create their business. It turned it into a gold mine. The challenge was simple: produce the liquor, hide the still, deliver it before federal agents arrived. Success depended on one thing above all else: speed. At first, smugglers used ordinary cars. But ordinary cars couldn't outrun determined lawmen. So mechanics began transforming family sedans into machines built for escape. On the outside they looked completely normal. Under the hood, they became something else entirely. Engines were carefully tuned for maximum power. Heavy-duty springs and reinforced suspensions carried hundreds of pounds of moonshine without making the car sag. Extra fuel tanks extended the range. Hidden compartments concealed bottles beneath seats, behind panels, and inside modified trunks. Every modification served one purpose: stay ahead of the law. By the early 1930s, many drivers favored powerful V8-powered Fords, especially after the introduction of the Ford Flathead V8 in 1932. Its combination of speed, affordability, and mechanical simplicity made it ideal for hauling illegal liquor across rural roads. Other makes were used as well, but horsepower had become the bootlegger's greatest ally. The deliveries rarely happened during daylight. Drivers waited until midnight. Headlights dimmed. Engines barely audible in the distance. Every curve could hide an ambush. Every crossroads might contain a federal roadblock. Every successful trip meant another fortune earned before sunrise. These drivers memorized every inch of mountain roads. They knew where gravel became pavement, where bridges narrowed, where sharp corners forced pursuing vehicles to slow. The landscape itself became part of their strategy. One maneuver became legendary. Approaching a tight corner at high speed, the driver would suddenly shift the vehicle's weight, rotate the rear of the car, pivot nearly 180 degrees, and accelerate out of the turn before pursuers could react. It became known as the bootlegger turn. It demanded extraordinary skill. One mistake meant arrest or death. Federal agents quickly realized they weren't chasing ordinary criminals. They were chasing some of the finest drivers in America. Many smugglers could repair an engine before sunrise, evade a roadblock before breakfast, and deliver their cargo before noon. Mechanical knowledge became just as valuable as courage. When Prohibition finally ended, those skills didn't disappear. The liquor business shrank, but the drivers remained. They began gathering at dirt tracks across the South, racing the same modified cars they had once used to outrun the law. Crowds loved it. Competition replaced smuggling. In 1948, those informal races helped give birth to the National Association for Stock Car Auto Racing, NASCAR. What had started as illegal moonshine deliveries through dark mountain roads evolved into one of America's most celebrated motorsports. One of the country's biggest sporting traditions traced part of its heritage back to Prohibition. While bootleggers raced through the mountains, a far larger smuggling network surrounded the nation itself. Canada became one of the greatest suppliers of illegal whiskey. Frozen rivers, dense forests, and remote crossings overwhelmed federal enforcement. Night after night, liquor crossed the border. Off the Atlantic coast, another marketplace emerged. Ships loaded with scotch, rum, champagne, and whiskey anchored just beyond American territorial waters. This floating marketplace became known as Rum Row. Smaller boats raced out under cover of darkness, loaded their cargo, and disappeared before authorities could intervene. From the Caribbean came rum. From Europe came scotch and fine wines. From Mexico came additional supplies crossing the southern border. America had not stopped alcohol imports. It had simply handed control of them to international smuggling networks. Inside the cities, the drinking never stopped. It merely changed addresses. Secret bars known as speakeasies multiplied at astonishing speed. Some hid behind restaurants, others beneath barber shops. Many required passwords that changed nightly. Walking through the wrong door could lead either to a jazz club or directly into a police raid. By the late 1920s, New York City was believed to have tens of thousands of speakeasies. Many were more luxurious than the saloons they replaced. Live jazz filled the rooms. Champagne flowed freely. Politicians, actors, businessmen, musicians, and ordinary workers drank side by side. Ironically, Prohibition had made alcohol fashionable. Keeping those bars supplied required industrial-scale organization. No one understood that better than Al Capone. After rising through Johnny Torrio's organization, Capone transformed Chicago into the center of an illegal empire. Bootlegging financed gambling operations, prostitution, labor racketeering, and widespread political corruption. His organization operated breweries, distilleries, warehouses, truck fleets, distribution networks, and armed security. In many ways, it functioned less like a street gang and more like a multinational corporation operating entirely outside the law. Competition soon became deadly. Rival gangs fought over territory, customers, and supply routes. Bombings echoed through city streets. Drive-by shootings became frighteningly common. The profits were so enormous that violence became just another operating expense. Then came February 14, 1929. 7 members and associates of George "Bugs" Moran's North Side gang gathered inside a garage on North Clark Street in Chicago. Men dressed as police officers entered. The victims believed they were being arrested. Seconds later, machine guns opened fire. The St. Valentine's Day massacre horrified the nation. For millions of Americans, Prohibition was no longer about drinking. It had become a symbol of organized crime, corruption, and bloodshed. By the end of the 1920s, the promise of Prohibition had begun to crumble. The country had not become crime-free. It had become more violent. It had not eliminated corruption. It had spread it into city halls, police departments, courtrooms, and businesses across the nation. The experiment was beginning to collapse under its own weight. Then, on October 29, 1929, everything became worse. The stock market crashed. Banks failed. Factories closed. Businesses disappeared. The Great Depression swept across America with devastating force, leaving millions unemployed and desperate for work. Almost overnight, the debate surrounding Prohibition changed. The question was no longer whether alcohol was moral. The question became whether America could afford to keep banning it. Every illegal bottle represented lost tax revenue. Every underground brewery represented jobs that no longer existed. Every dollar spent enforcing Prohibition was a dollar unavailable for economic recovery. Business leaders saw opportunity. Economists saw revenue. State governments saw empty treasuries. Even many former supporters of Prohibition began asking whether the country had learned an expensive lesson. People were going to drink anyway. Why should criminals collect the profits? Public opinion shifted with remarkable speed. Newspapers that had once praised Prohibition now criticized it. Editorials questioned the growing power of organized crime. Communities that had voted to ban alcohol only years earlier began reconsidering their position. Faith in the noble experiment was fading. One politician understood this changing mood better than almost anyone: Franklin Delano Roosevelt. During the presidential election of 1932, Roosevelt openly supported repealing Prohibition. He argued that legalizing alcohol would create jobs, restore tax revenue, and allow law enforcement to focus on more serious crimes. His message resonated across a nation exhausted by economic hardship. Roosevelt won the election by a landslide. His victory reflected more than dissatisfaction with the economy. It signaled that millions of Americans had lost confidence in Prohibition itself. The movement that had once united churches, reformers, and politicians was now losing the support of the very public it claimed to protect. Less than a month after taking office, Roosevelt signed the Cullen-Harrison Act on March 22, 1933. Beginning in April, Americans could once again legally buy beer with up to 3.2% alcohol by weight, along with certain light wines. Across the country, breweries reopened. Workers returned to their jobs. Long lines formed outside businesses that had been closed for more than a decade. But Prohibition itself still remained in the Constitution. Only another constitutional amendment could erase it. Congress proposed the 21st Amendment, sending the decision to specially elected state conventions rather than state legislatures. It was an unusual process, and one designed to reflect the will of the people as directly as possible. Throughout 1933, states voted one after another. Momentum built rapidly. Then, on December 5, 1933, Utah became the 36th state to ratify the amendment. With that vote, the required 3/4 majority had been reached. The 18th Amendment was officially repealed. For the first and only time in American history, one constitutional amendment had completely overturned another. Celebrations erupted across the nation. Breweries restarted production. Restaurants served alcohol legally for the first time in nearly 14 years. Federal agents who had spent years chasing bootleggers suddenly watched legal delivery trucks travel the same roads. The war on alcohol was over, at least officially. Yet the organizations Prohibition had created did not simply disappear. The infrastructure built for bootlegging remained intact. The same networks that had transported whiskey could now transport gambling profits, narcotics, stolen goods, and extortion money. Organized crime did not die with Prohibition. It evolved. No figure represented that transformation more than Al Capone. For years, investigators struggled to prove his involvement in murder, bootlegging, and racketeering. Witnesses disappeared. Evidence vanished. Corruption protected him. In the end, prosecutors found another path. They followed the money. In 1931, Capone was convicted not for murder, not for bootlegging, not for leading one of the largest criminal organizations in America, but for federal income tax evasion. He received an 11-year prison sentence and was eventually transferred to Alcatraz. One of history's most feared gangsters fell because he failed to pay taxes on illegal income. Historians still debate whether Prohibition succeeded or failed. There is evidence that alcohol consumption dropped substantially during its early years. Some alcohol-related illnesses declined. Certain communities experienced less public drunkenness. Those outcomes were real. But so were the unintended consequences. A vast black market, institutional corruption, unsafe homemade liquor, powerful criminal syndicates, and thousands of deaths from poisoned alcohol, including those linked to increasingly toxic industrial alcohol deliberately denatured under federal policy. Perhaps the greatest lesson of Prohibition has little to do with alcohol itself. It is a lesson about incentives. When governments prohibit a product that millions of people still demand, supply rarely disappears. Instead, it often moves into the shadows, where violence replaces regulation, secrecy replaces accountability, and criminals replace legitimate businesses. The market survives. Only its rules change. More than a century later, the story still echoes through modern debates over prohibition, regulation, and public policy. America's war on drinks was launched with extraordinary confidence. Its supporters believed they could legislate morality, eliminate addiction, and build a better society. Instead, they unleashed consequences few had imagined. Secret speakeasies, international smuggling empires, deadly gang wars, poisoned alcohol, and a generation of outlaws whose legacy stretched from organized crime all the way to NASCAR. History rarely repeats itself exactly, but it often asks the same question in different forms. What happens when a government declares war on something its own people refuse to surrender?